Welcome, mortals. Roses are red, violets are blue, but sometimes ancient pagan rituals and gangland warfare are too. This Valentine's, we're getting to the heart of the matter, and maybe a few other historical organs. Join us as we tear down the romantic facade to expose the wild pagan roots, then honor the saints who gave the day their name before finally visiting Chicago's most notorious act of affection, the 1929 St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Happy blood-soaked Valentines from the Parallax Podcast.
Hi, Willow.
Hi, Karisa. Happy, well, soon to be for us at the time of recording, Valentine's Day.
Well, this is Friday the 13th when this episode comes out, but we're not talking about that day in history.
Yeah, sorry.
We're going to talk about Valentine's Day, but because February always masks March when it's a non-leap year, that means there's another Friday the 13th coming in March. So we can definitely talk about the history of Friday the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, next
Oh,
month.
that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah. Because a lot of people, it's unlucky, but there is some actual luck to that day and some interesting history.
There's also tattoos.
Flash sheets. All right. So for all those who are getting their flash sheet tattoos today on Valentine's weekend.
Yeah, we're here for you to listen to so you can deal with for some of you, pain of getting the tattoo. For some of you, it just gives you a nice therapeutic space to listen to true crime and spiritual paranormal stuff.
Yes, I feel like we're like on that love radio. For all those lovers out there getting your tattoo today.
For all those true crime and paranormal freaks out there.
Right? Today, we're going to flip the script on the order in which we normally do things. I mean, it's Friday the 13th. Why wouldn't we just flip it around?
Yeah, might as well. Nothing could go wrong.
Nothing can go wrong. I'm going to give you the myths and the uncertain history that are out there on how February 14th became known as Love and Valentine's. And then Willow's going to bring us into the more massacre, violence, crime of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. And then we're going to talk some theories. We're going to talk about some interesting theories about this case.
It's going to be great. And right on cue, my black cat is also sitting on the desk here to help us. So all the good vibes.
All the good vibes. All the things are in line.
Yes.
All right. So the origins of St. Valentine's Day are kind of complex. And I'm not sure how much history of this that you know.
Literally none.
Oh, okay.
So, I know that I assume that there was a Saint Valentine or something of the sort, and that's it. That's kind of all I know.
Yeah, there were definitely a couple. So it's complex. It's a blending of ancient, pagan traditions. The pagan would be like, oh, Christianity has stole this from us, where the Christians are like, yes, but we have some martyrdoms here. There's some romantic literature from some poets. It's less about a single definitive event and more about the evolution over centuries. So I wanted to kind of break down some of the myths in like a chronological timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So let's start with like the myths and legends surrounding Valentine's Day and its origin. The most persistent myths and legends revolve around St. Valentine's himself, or rather, I should say, several possible St. Valentines. The Catholic Church recognizes at least 3 early saints named Valentine or Valentinus.
Oh, okay.
And the stories often kind of become intertwined. Do you remember that happening before with another saint?
Yeah, wasn't that St. Nicholas?
Yes,
ma'am.
That
you said there were like
ma'am.
multiple that could have actually been the St. Nicholas that they talk about.
Mm-hmm. I mean, no offense to the Catholic Church, but they actually have a plethora of people with the same names that seem to like keep like doing the same stuff.
They do. they do be naming the people the same names over and over again.
Yes. Let's start off with the Valentine that's known as the priest. This is around 3rd century. This was kind of more of the popular legend. This is when Emperor Claudius II or Claudius Gothicus outlawed marriage in young men. So the ideology behind the emperor was that his soldiers were not focused when they were married men. So he outlawed them from being married.
I'm sorry. I think your soldiers are not focused when they're not married because they're trying to find somebody to marry.
Their
But
loins
whatever.
be craving.
Exactly.
Yes.
Guard your loins.
Their loins be craving. Which is interesting because this will later tie into when you talk about the massacre and the whole reason why things were bootlegged. Like things being outlawed.
Exactly.
Yes. So there's a lot of outlawing happening here. This one, they're outlawing love, essentially. The emperor, he's basically telling these single men that they make better soldiers when they don't have a mate. So this Valentine, this priest, who actually was a doctor as well, defied the emperor's decree and secretly performed marriages for these young lovers. And so when his actions were discovered, he was imprisoned and eventually was executed for it. Okay.
How dare you allow people to love each other? That is awful of you.
Yeah. There's a story that a part of this legend that while he was imprisoned, there's two parts, I should say. While he was in prison, this priest supposedly fell in love with the jailer's daughter.
Oh.
But then the other part of the story is that he didn't fall in love with the jailer's daughter, but the jailer talked about his daughter who was blind, and that he miraculously healed his daughter from this blindness. So whether he was in love with her or that's a different saint, there's a story of a priest named Valentine that fell in love with a girl, but then there's the story of like he didn't fall in love with her, but he was there to heal her from her blindness.
Mm-hmm.
And then before his execution, supposedly he wrote a farewell letter to this girl and signed it from your Valentine, which we obviously have that same phrase today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That is the legend as it is told. Now, there's also Valentine, the bishop from Terni. This is in Italy. This is also around 3rd century, strangely in the same time frame. This Valentine, though, was also martyred by Claudius Glaucus, and his story is very similar, that he was associated with trying to convert the emperor to Christianity. This is like a different version because he was going to be killed because he didn't believe in the Roman gods. So he was trying to prove that Christianity is real by showing he can cure this girl from blindness. So there's different spider webs of the same guy, but like in different versions of who he was and how it got to the point where he was, essentially tied to this girl. All right. The third one is Valentine from Africa, North Africa. Not sure about the dates, though. This one is very unclear. A little bit lesser. This is a lesser known about this Saint Valentine, but he was also known to be martyred, indicating there's a commonality, obviously, with the name among Christian martyrs. But it is said that he is tied to love as well, somehow. But there's not a lot known about this person. So that could just be like a rumor mill, like he originated from Africa. Who knows? But there is a third one out there kind of lingering. All the Saint Valentines were recognized as martyrs, executed for their Christian faith during the Roman persecution. And they were often depicted as being these compassionate figures who acted out of charity, healing, defiance for the sake of love, and divine or romantic ways to convert people. And they were willing to basically die for their beliefs for the sake of love and underscored this like devotion to the church. So, thoughts? You're muted. Your thoughts are muted.
I've been muted this whole time. Oh my God.
Yes, your thoughts were muted this whole time.
I'm doing so good, Karissa. I'm doing so good tonight. Anyway, what I was trying to say before I realized that I was muted. So it makes. Do we have Saint Valentine's in more recent history at all? And you're going to tell me that? Never mind. You're going to get there.
Well, in more recent history, there was a poet.
Okay. Because I was going to say, because I was wondering, I was like, okay, the little stories that you just told me could be where, like an idea of like where the name itself originated as well. Like not only just this idea of Valentine's Day being the day of love and such, but also where the name Valentine's or Saint Valentine's came from.
Right. Okay, so and then I'll give you like a real quick historical like back in the dates, and then I'm going to introduce you to the poet, the literature person. A lot of times we know that the Catholic Church likes to combine pagan holidays to get people out of the pagan mindset and back into the Christian.
They're very good at it.
Yes. So this is a very debated one. So this is thought because this actually happened on February 15th, and supposedly St. Valentine was martyred on the 14th.
Okay.
The pagan myth of Lupercalia, the Lupercalia is this, it's like a fertility festival. Okay.
Okay.
And yes, it was dedicated to the Roman god of agriculture.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
the priests would sacrifice goats and dogs. One goat, one dog. They would literally take a piece of their flesh. Okay. I see your face. And then they would run through the streets and gently strike women. They say gently, but I'm pretty sure based on how people were back then, they did not gently strike the women. They probably and they would strike the women with these strips of sacrificial hides, believing that it ensured fertility. So all those people having trouble with
No.
babies, go get you a goat and a dog, strip its hide, and start slapping your mate with the hide.
Just go slap your wife with the hide of a goat. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
Oh,
It'll be fine. Yeah.
Valentine's Day is tomorrow, you guys. You need to go find the goat now.
And a dog. It has to be goat and dog.
I don't want you. I'm not going to tell you to go find a dog.
I'm not going to tell you to find really either of those. I don't want you doing either one. Just don't do it. Anyways, I mean, so this is called like the replacement theory. This is what is known to be happening with the Catholic Church when they replace a practice within the pagan belief and combine it with their Christian beliefs to create more of a solidified holiday to keep people from being pagan, almost like a compromise. But the idea is that Christianity is spread through these pagan holidays, and a lot of times the popes are said to have abolished certain pagan beliefs. So they replace them. That way it feels like you're almost like a compromise. Like, I'm going to take this from you, but I'm going to give you this instead, okay?
I'm going to give you something different.
I'm going to give you, instead of your goat and dog skin, I'm going to give you chocolate and cards.
I'm going to give you chocolate and cards. See, so much better.
So much better. Love your Valentine. Okay. But so people believe that that's why the church established the St. Valentine's Day. But again, we don't actually have this is a historical debate where things were condemned for the pagan stuff, but there's literally no direct historical evidence linking the abolishment of the Lupercalia to the immediate establishment of St. Valentine's Day. So there's no, I mean, we know that both happened. We just don't know if there's any actual link to establishing that.
Okay, so it's like thought that perhaps this is what happened, but we don't have any proof to confirm like exactly when it happened or that this was the ideal. Let's abolish this and we're going to replace it with this day.
Right. So it gets established. We're going to just start. We're gonna focus on Saint Valentine and his sacrifice, the martyrdom of him. That's what we're going to focus on this February 14th. Now, we really did not establish the connection with love until like more of a much later date in medieval literature. Around 270, I think it's like 268 or something like that, CE in the Roman Empire. That's when we have the martyrs. That's where we have the multiple Valentines or Valentinus. There were a lot, which is crazy. There were a lot of Valentines in this area at the time. That was a very well-known name. So it's not like
the name.
It was the name. It was the trending name, like Smith or.
I was about to say that's the Abby and Caitlin of the 200s.
Yes. Then around 496 CE, that is when the Roman Empire. That's when the Pope at the time declared the abolishment of that pagan festival. So you have a good couple hundred years in between where these things, didn't quite connect. We're not really sure, again, historically, if that was the reason it was abolished or whatever. But while that moves on, we move into the 14th century. That would be 1,000 years later. Now we've moved into medieval England. And Geoffrey Chaucer, I'm sure you've heard of Chaucer.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, he first recorded the association of St. Valentine's Day with romantic love, and it appears in his writings. So in 1382, the poem Parliament of Fowls, it says this was the love or the story of this is on Valentine's Day.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like when every birth, I'm trying to read this. It's in Old English, by the way. It's written in Old English. Shall I speak it in this manner?
It's even worse.
In his 1382 poem, Parliament of Fowls, he writes, "For this was on Valentine's Day, when every bird comes there to choose his mate. Chaucer and other medieval writers invented this idea that Valentine's Day, when the birds chose their mates, linking human courtship and love. So this was a kind of a crucial turning point in shifting the day from solely the martyr's feast to a celebration of romance.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then, yeah. So then, like in the 15th century, this is the first written Valentines. Yes, in 1415, Charles, Duke of Orleans, while imprisoned in the Tower of London after the battle that he was in, writes to his earliest known Valentine poem, which was his wife. And this poem, now part of the British Literary Library collection, begins with, "I am already sick of love, my very gentle Valentine." So it's like, I am already sick of love, my very gentle Valentine. So are you sick of loving her? Are you sick with love? I am sick of love because my gentle. Sounds like a very Bridgerton thing to say.
Yes, it does. It sounds perfect for the time.
So, of course, Europe, we got the traditions, they start exchanging notes and poems and blah, blah, blah. And you've got Shakespeare on the scene with Hamlet. And
oh, Shakespeare.
Yes. And you've got these different types of writers in literature who are making references to Valentine's Day, new customs indicating this growing culture and its significance. So as we get to like the 19th century, and we've got like Great Britain and we've got the United States starting to get into like commercialization, and we've got the Industrial Revolution, we've got all these things going. We get to the printing press, and now what's happening is we can print our Valentine's Day cards. We can start
and now we have
getting
cards.
these more elaborate, mass-produced fancy Valentines. So now we have all this stuff basically happening where you can start sending special grams to your loved ones or your, whatever. So yeah. But that's kind of how the explosion of Valentine's Day changed from the feast of a saint, goat and dog hide slapping, to flowers, chocolates, and jewelry coming standard gifts.
I mean, I think it's very obvious how we went from dog and goat hide slapping to chocolates and flowers.
Yes.
It's a very, very obvious transition there.
So we know that this eventually spread globally, and we know it's still here and it's very commercialized. If you're not wanting to buy your loved one something chocolatey or blingy, just get them a little bit of rawhide from a goat and dog and be like,
yeah,
I'm keeping it old, sweetie. I'm keeping it traditional.
We're having fun with our...
Trying to keep Valentine's Day traditional. All right, that's your little history lesson.
For all those people out there who say, well, I don't celebrate Valentine's Day because it's just commercialism. Actually, it's not.
Actually, it's not. It's about curing the blind and slapping people with rawhides.
Exactly. If you don't want to celebrate Valentine's Day because for the commercialism, just celebrate it for the hide slapping. That's it.
Yes, and the
ancient
fertilization.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the fertilization. This is fertilization.
For all those babies who are going to be born in September, October timeframe, this one's for you.
All right, so now let's flip the script. Let's go from love to massacre.
Exactly.
Take it away, Willow.
All right, so we're going to the Midwest now. We're going back to the 1920s. We're going straight to the gangs that were in Chicago at this time. Specifically, we're going back to the morning of February 14th, 1929 in Chicago, Illinois, where 7 men were lined up against a brick wall inside a garage at 2122 North Clark Street. Within minutes, all 7 of those men are dead. This event would become known as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, one of the most infamous gangland killings in American history. It marked a turning point in the violent struggle for control of Chicago's bootlegging operations during Prohibition. To understand what happened inside that garage, it's also necessary to understand the climate of Chicago in the late 1920s. Prohibition had been in effect since the year 1920. The 18th Amendment and the Volstead Act outlawed the manufacture, sale, and distribution of alcohol. However, instead of eliminating liquor, this did exactly what happens with teenagers when you tell them no. It created an enormous black market. You told the Americans they can't have alcohol, and so they found a different way to do it.
Do you know why they did that?
Why they did what?
Why the United States decided to do that?
I actually don't.
Well, let me tell you. They outlawed that because they felt their workers were coming to work and like showing up late and inconsistent and all these things. Their working force was not being as workforce-ish. So they decided it was alcohol that caused this problem. So they decided to ban it.
It's so funny that they think alcohol is what caused the problem.
Instead of just lazy humans.
Yeah, like, okay, let's make it so that we outlaw alcohol. All of a sudden we have organized crime and people are poisoning themselves with bootlegged alcohol. But like, it's okay because the workers will show up on time. It's worth it.
Right. You might have a few less workers, but
they'll
be on time.
Yeah, the ones that are alive will be on time. So, as we just talked about, organized crime syndicates stepped in to supply what the law prohibited. And Chicago became one of the most profitable battlegrounds. On the south side, Al Capone controlled a massive bootlegging network. His organization ran breweries, speakeasies, gambling dens, and brothels. Now, I knew that Al Capone was obviously very successful in his operations. I didn't realize how successful, because by 1929, Capone was earning an estimated $60 to $100 million per year. And that's an old-timey money, Karissa.
That's about $1 billion, $2 billion in this time frame.
Isn't that insane?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that's
profitable
wild.
He was?
Yes. Like,
yeah.
I knew he must have been, but I was like, oh my Lord, I didn't know the actual numbers. On the north side of Chicago, another organization operated under George Bugs Moran. How do they get these names? Like, Bugs.
So
how are they
Bugs,
getting these names?
He was given the name Bugs because he was actually kind of like twitchy. He was very crazy.
Ew.
Yeah, like that's how he got the name. Yeah, he was just kind of like, yeah, he was just like that's
gross. That's nasty.
Well, not in the sense of like you had no, like he was just like you couldn't trust. Like he was just like like he was a very violent person.
I do know that he was a very violent person.
But you know how you talk about violent people being twitchy? Like, oh, don't mess with them. They're very twitchy.
Okay, that makes more sense. I thought you meant like literally twitchy. And I was like, that's kind of okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Like almost like a spider would jump at you or like, think of like an insect coming at you.
Kind of unpredictable. They just go straight into action. Yeah. Okay. That makes more sense. I gotcha. I'm tracking now. Bugs Moran had taken over leadership of the North Side Gang after the deaths of earlier bosses, including Dean O'Banion and Jaime Weiss. The rivalry between Capone and Moran had been escalating for years. Between 1924 and 1929, Chicago saw hundreds of gang-related killings. Both sides had suffered losses. Shootings, ambushes, and bombings were common. By early 1929, tensions between the Capone organization and Moran's North Side Gang were at a peak. The massacre appears to have been the result of a planned trap. Investigators later determined that a shipment of high-quality Canadian whiskey had been offered to Moran's gang at a discounted price. The meeting point was arranged at the SMC Cartage Company garage on North Clark Street. The garage was used by Moran's men to store trucks and vehicles. So I am assuming from the multiple reports and stuff that they had done business, I guess, at this garage multiple times. So it wasn't really weird for them to be picking up a shipment or whatever at this spot. So this meeting obviously was set for the morning of February 14th. Around 10:30 a.m., several men associated with the North Side Gang gathered inside the garage. Among them were Albert Kalchelik, also known as James Clark, Moran's brother-in-law and second-in-command. No wonder they renamed him James Clark. His last name is interesting to pronounce. Anywho, Frank Gusenberg, a longtime North Side member, Peter Gusenberg, Frank's brother, Adam Hayer, the gang's bookkeeper, Al Weinshank, who managed cleaning and pressing operations tied to the gang, John May, a mechanic, and Dr. Reinhard Schwimmer, an optometrist who is associated with the gang. How does an optometrist become associated with the gang?
First of all, so back then, especially at this peak point, I mean, it was very well known that the police officers and businessmen, you basically were either in the mob, connected to the mob, you had to be a sympathizer if you wanted to live,
No,
essentially.
that's true.
So you're going to have people that are in business, just like we have corrupt businessmen, politicians today.
You
They would
know.
have had that back then, just for a different reason.
Okay.
Yeah, instead of it being a special island, now it was bootlegging back then.
Instead of the special island and boats and parties and such, it's
Mhm.
bootlegging. You know.
Bootlegging.
Wow, history repeats itself.
Mhm.
It's crazy.
You got
how
money.
that happens.
When you have money, you get bored. Apparently.
I guess so. Notably absent, however, from this little gathering of bootleggers was Bugs Moran himself. Shortly before 10:30 a.m., witnesses outside the garage saw a police car pull up. Now, and I know that you're going to say something about this later. I'm just going to mention it now. I've saw some places where it was like it said a police car. Other times I read and heard things about a black Cadillac.
Yeah. So I think it's known that it was a black Cadillac sedan that looked like a typical
police
car.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That makes more sense. Okay.
Like it was deliberately used to resemble a police car.
Makes sense. Okay. Because I was like, okay, well, I've heard the black Cadillac, and I know for a fact that it was a black Cadillac.
But you know how they used to have they had the sirens you could plop up on top?
Yeah, that you would just, that's what they did. That makes more sense then. Because, of course, I'm sitting here thinking, like, now we have very specific cars that are very specifically marked that you see. It's like, that is a police car.
I think it was because they could plop the siren up on top. So people assumed it was a police car, but it was just a black Cadillac.
Okay. Gotcha. So after this car pulls up, two men dressed in police uniforms entered the building, accompanied by two other men who were in plain clothes. Inside, these men, once they got inside, they pulled out Thompson submachine guns, which of course everybody knows your average policeman does in fact carry around their Thompson submachine gun. Just strapped to their hip, no big deal. And they told the seven men to line up facing the brick wall. Now, Frank Gusenberg knew he had a hunch something was wrong. I don't know what told him something was wrong. Maybe it was the Thompson submachine guns. But just in case this was a police operation, he decided to comply to hopefully, survive. But instead, the gunmen opened fire. The weapons used again were identified as the Thompson submachine guns, commonly called Tommy guns. But there was apparently at least one shotgun. Ballistic evidence later indicated approximately 70 rounds were fired. The men were quite obviously shot repeatedly at close range. I think the 70 rounds is probably overkill. When the shooting stopped, the gunmen staged their exit. Witnesses saw two police officers walk out of the garage with the two plainclothes men in front of them. To onlookers, it appeared as if the police had conducted a raid and were escorting suspects away. The gunmen entered the police car and left the scene, which I saw in something I read that at the same time as another officer was responding to a call about shots fired, this officer saw this black Cadillac leaving the area of the scene. I don't know if he really put together that the black Cadillac at that time had anything to do with what had just happened, but he did see the black Cadillac leaving. 6 of the 7 victims were pronounced dead at the scene. One man, Frank Gusenberg, was miraculously still alive. He had sustained multiple gunshot wounds. Reports vary between 14 to 22 bullet wounds, and he was still alive at that time. Right when the very first officer got there, he asked Frank what had happened. And in this, I guess this is just what gang members do. And he said, "Who shot you?" Gusenberg reportedly replied, "No one. No one shot me," even though he was obviously riddled with bullets, and so was everyone else. But he didn't say who it was, and he died 3 hours later without ever identifying who it was that had come and shot them. Bugs Moran himself had narrowly escaped death because he was supposed to be there, but he was running late. And by the time he got there, he saw the black Cadillac parked outside of the garage and thought that there was a police raid, so he left. So he was supposed to have been there and wasn't in the scene. Investigators quickly focused on Al Capone as a likely orchestrator. Capone was widely known to be engaged in an ongoing feud with Moran. Eliminating Moran's leadership would have consolidated Capone's control over Chicago's bootlegging market. However, Capone had established an alibi. At the time of the massacre, he was staying at his winter home in Palm Island, Florida.
Convenient.
How convenient of him to know exactly when he had to be out of state. What? And the authorities were in fact able to confirm that that is in fact where he was on February 14th. And while, as we know, obviously that didn't eliminate the possibility of him ordering the attack, it did complicate any effort to charge him directly since he wasn't there. The Chicago police launched a major investigation. Ballistics testing... Yeah, of course I did. We say that and like, didn't I? Ballistics testing connected 2 Thompson submachine guns specifically recovered months later to the massacre. These guns were traced to associates of Capone's organization. One suspect emerged prominently, Fred Killer Burke, a member of the Capone organization known for violent enforcement activities. In December 1929, Burke was arrested in Michigan after killing a police officer during a traffic stop. Weapons found in his possession were ballistically matched to the St. Valentine's Day massacre. So his weapons, at least, whether it was him or not, his weapons had been used at the massacre. Despite this evidence, however, Burke was never tried for the massacre. He was convicted for the murder of the Michigan police officer and sentenced to life in prison. Other suspected participants included Jack McGurn, a Capone enforcer believed to have organized the operation and potentially recruited several other gunmen for the ambush. McGurn was questioned but never charged. He was later murdered in 1936. Now, this massacre itself obviously had immediate and far-reaching consequences. The public outrage after this massacre was intense. The graphic nature of the crime, as 7 men were executed in daylight in a residential neighborhood, shocked the nation. And this was also one of the first times that such graphic photographs of the crime scene were in the news and were so widely circulated. So this is when the public was like, okay, something has to be done about this organized crime. It has gotten out of hand. We have to do something. So President Herbert Hoover directed federal agencies to prioritize prosecution of major gang leaders, particularly Al Capone. While Capone was not convicted for the massacre, the federal government pursued him aggressively for other crimes, specifically the income tax evasion that he was later indicted for. And this is kind of a little bit of probably a later episode, but this is where we got like the untouchables, the people that he tried really hard to bribe, but he couldn't bribe any of the people in this investigative group who were looking into the tax evasion and stuff. And so they became known as the untouchables. I thought that was kind of cool. Let's scroll down here. And I also find it interesting too. So this itself, the massacre, is seen as the quote end of Prohibition, because not too long after this is when Prohibition ended, and this was seen as the major event that made it so that the public outcry was large enough to get the federal government to start looking into the possibility of prohibition causing organized crime. Now,
Pandora's box had already been opened.
Exactly. Now, see, Hoover, he did create a investigative team to study whether or not prohibition was or could be directly linked to the organized crime. And of course, the investigation showed that yes, prohibition was absolutely linked to the rise of organized crime. And yet Hoover himself never wanted to end prohibition. So it was ended under Roosevelt, because Roosevelt was the one who sat there and was like, we need to repeal this, da, 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 da. That was part of why he won in the next election. But Hoover himself never wanted to, even though he literally got this report in his desk that said, hey, we should probably end this because it is causing very violent organized crime.
People want to drink.
They want to drink their stuff. But the other far-reaching consequences of the Valentine's Day massacre was that the Northside gang was effectively crippled by the loss of its leadership. Moran's power diminished significantly immediately after the massacre, and he never regained the influence that he once had. The massacre site itself remained standing for decades, and the SMC Cartridge Company garage was finally demolished in 1967. Bricks from the wall where the men were executed were reportedly salvaged and later sold as memorabilia.
I wonder if they were haunted.
I would imagine so. I'd imagine some people have those bricks and they just like see people in their houses like, hey, I see dead people. So let's get a little bit into our thoughts, because even though there was extensive investigation, no one was ever definitively convicted for the St. Valentine's Day massacre. We can infer that Capone was most likely the one who ordered it, but other than that, other than the people who died, we don't know anyone else definitively who was there and had anything to do with the situation. But apparently Karisa does.
So you give me way too much credit. No. So here's the thing. Many individuals obviously were suspected of participating. I mean, when we say participating, that means planning, looking out.
Of participating in any way, shape, or form.
Active shooter, getaway car drivers, things like that. And so specific roles were secret. Just being a part of Al Capone's organization was a secret and ruthless thing to be a part of. And so, not to mention the intimidation was probably immense.
Yeah.
Anybody who was witnessed anything. So the fact that people actually came forward and said they witnessed stuff is crazy.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. So the detailed accounts obviously it's kind of scarce and kind of conflicting if you think about it. I mean, especially the Cadillac. So growing up, man, I have so many connections. It's weird. I don't
terrifying. Who are you?
Listen, I don't try. So my grandparents were married 1950 on Valentine's Day. My grandmother had a very interesting upbringing. Her parents were bootleggers.
Oh, they were?
I have pictures.
Okay.
I'm going to reach out to my cousin. Well, since my grandma has passed, she's got all these pictures. But there is a picture of them with a Cadillac with their trunk open and the drinks. This is my grandmother's parents, who did not want to raise my grandma, didn't raise any of their kids, sent a lot of their kids to the orphanage.
That is wild. Oh my gosh.
Yes. And my grandmother was sent to live with her grandmother. And so it was they had kids, but they got rid of them. Okay. So they could run in their bootlegging industry. Yeah. So with that said, I was in my early 20s, maybe 19 to early 20s. I can't remember exactly when I found this out. And my grandmother spoke of it, and my aunt spoke of it, that somehow it's believed that my grandmother's dad, Frank, was the getaway driver.
Bro.
For the St. Valentine's Day massacre.
Bro.
And I'm I remember a picture. Listen, when I sat down with
that Cadillac, right? That Cadillac.
I'm going to confirm. I want to confirm. In my brain, I see it, but I want to confirm. I'm going to try and find the picture. However, he would be unknown to those in Chicago, so he would be an unknown face. And typically in organized crime, your getaway drivers are kind of like the low end. No one knows who they are because they're not high in the ranks. So they would bring people.
Because if anything happens, it doesn't matter. If anything happens to them, whatever, they don't really know anything.
Right. And so they were in Cleveland. So right near the good way from the Canadian border, a lot of trafficking through there.
So and that's why he could have been the getaway driver, because if he has anything to do with getting that order, quote unquote, of the Canadian whiskey. Oh my God, Karisa!
Here's the thing: he had changed his name. And she had changed. They changed They had when my grandmother's mother, so my great grandmother, when she passed away, no one knew when she actually was born. She had multiple birth certificates. My grandmother didn't even have a maiden name until she was married, and she had to actually create one.
Oh my, okay. Wild back then, you can just become whoever you want to. Nowadays, there's so many things you have to do, but
Yeah.
So, my brain is going in so many different directions right now. When do you know if they happened to change their name right before or right after the St. Valentine's Day massacre?
That I'm not 100% sure of, because I don't know. I don't know if that was something that happened. I just know they were bootleggers. Okay.
What
When,
a history you have,
right?
Carissa.
So pause right here for just a second. My cat wants out.
I love it.
Okay. So my grandmother, whenever I could tell very early on that she was starting to get a little dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I asked her for her recipes. I sat down with her. And then one time I had my Aunt Nancy, who was the oldest daughter, and my Aunt Lisa, who was the youngest daughter, and my grandma. I had all three of them there for a reason because my grandma had pictures on the wall and I took pictures. And I wanted to know the stories behind the pictures. And as I'm going through these pictures with her, I start to notice something. So the grandmother that she lived with, they called her little grandma.
Oh,
They called her little. Oh, no, no, no. I'm going to send you a picture. This woman was in charge.
okay.
For sure. She always had men dressed very well next to her that we don't know who they are.
Oh.
Her and
Oh, okay.
her husband, who wasn't my grandmother's grandpa, his name was Grandpa Charlie. And they lived in separate houses.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yep. She had her own little thing going on. Yes. I'm going to find a picture. It's in my notes. Hold on somewhere. And so you can kind of see what she looked like. My grandmother could have went by the last names of Skurlock, Burroughs, Allen, or Bruce.
Oh my gosh.
Richard Allen Burroughs was his name, and possibly Allen. I mean, he had different last names. There's all kinds of different things going on here. So let me see if I can find a picture. Oh, here's one. Okay, let's send this one to Willow. Here's this one, and then
I'll send you a picture of my cat.
here's the grandfather. Here's the Skurlock one, or here's the my great grandfather that is supposedly the getaway driver.
Wow, look at that hat.
And this photo here, I would like to take
Carissa, you can't get any 1920s bootlegger any more bootlegger than that.
Mm-hmm.
The mustache and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear the accent right now.
All right, so I sent Willow some photos. I sent her photos of my great-grandmother, my great-grandmother and her husband, my great-grandmother and the couple men that were next to her. Then I sent her a photo of my great-grandfather. Oh, wait,
The
sorry.
getaway driver.
I sent Willow pictures of my great-great-grandmother. So this would be my grandmother's
Yeah.
grandmother. Yes. So the older lady, so that would be my great-great-grandmother. The older lady. And then the man that I sent you on the other one that would be Richard Allen or whatever his name was. And then the
Wow.
picture the very last one I sent you is of him, which is my grandfather, or it's just my grandmother's father on the left. The man on the right is unknown.
That is wild.
Mm-hmm.
They look very your grandmother with multiple men. Or
But
great grandmother.
now I'm going to send you this picture and see if that man looks familiar.
Here.
The man that is in the back row with the white shirt and tie with a very strange hairline. He's the only one that's in white besides Al Capone. Do you see that hairline? That's a very distinct hairline, a very
Yeah.
distinct nose. Do you see that?
That is freaky.
Okay, so that man is standing next to my grandmother's father in that other picture.
That's scary. Oh.
Isn't that weird? Like, I was like, there
That
has to be a
is
picture connection.
Okay, yeah. So we're definitely gonna have to put these up on the
For everybody to look at?
and on our Instagram for everybody to look at and see what their thoughts are, because
Yeah,
that
so
is
we will
freaky.
share these photos on Instagram and Facebook. I will show you a picture of my great-grandfather standing next to an unknown man, and then a picture of Al Capone and his major people.
And you guys can look and see
And you can, yeah,
what you think, because
decide.
That is kind of scary. That's
Look
kind
at the hairline.
Yeah, the
Look at the
hairline gets
nose.
me. Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I'll find the picture of the the car and them having their vehicle open with the bootleg.
Because that's just interesting to see in general.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So this was
mean,
fun.
What's a good conspiracy, right? On the Parallax
It
Podcast.
is. Yeah, that's super. Don't you guys love it when we just bring you our
The 6 degrees of
familial
Karisa.
conspiracy, the 60 degrees of Karisa.
Kevin Bacon, move over.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Well, my grandfather was connected to one of the Lewis or Clarks. He was related to one of them too.
Oh yeah, you told me that. Yeah, you did tell me that.
Yeah. I don't know which one.
No big deal.
And
whatever.
I don't. Yeah. Never done the research,
NBD
but I'll
is
have to do
fine.
that, I guess. All right. So this has been fun. Happy Valentine's Day. Yes. Happy Valentine's Day to all of those lovers out there. And for all of those non-lovers, go get you a goat and dog and start slapping.
There you go. That's all you gotta do. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Right. Until next time, please share us some stories that you may have for future episodes. Email us at info@theparallaxpodcast.com. Make sure you follow us on social media by going to our website, theparallaxpodcast.com. Click on those icons. Until then, thank you for listening. I'm Karisa.
And I'm Willow. Goodbye, mortals.